With Lean and Six Sigma and Kaizen teams, I often see that they achieve good results, but then half a year later it just all fell back down to previous standards or to no standards. How can we deal with that? Hello, I'm Tom. Welcome to my channel. We talk about continuous improvement in an industrial setting. And today's video, it is about how do you sustain those improvements that come from your teams. Now, in any continuous improvement program, you will have this sustain element. And when you're doing the MAIC, and when you're doing a Kaizen event, and when you're doing all kinds of improvement routes, you will find that and now fix the standards, now sustain the gains, now control your processes and check your whole stuff. PDCA is also with your check and act or control and adjust, which is basically making sure that what you improved, what you thought up as a great new way of working, also becomes the new way of working and stays the new way of working and getting better results. But in practice, I see many companies struggling with it. And I think that there is one big problem, not for everyone, but that I see in quite a number of companies, sort of how this is not really working. And it has to do with changing your way of improving during the improvement project, during the runtime when the project team is still together. And that is something I want to discuss now. So first off, what we are going to do, and I'm going to talk about standards, but I want to frame it a bit better in a standard process that has process standards. What we want to fix is not just a result. We want to have standards for and around our process. That is indeed a performance standard. We got a nice result, fewer defects, or no longer have the edge roll off the line, something like that, an outcome. That is improved. That is almost always the reason why we do an improvement initiative, why we did that Kaizen event, to improve some sort of output. But we also really want to take a good look at the inputs that are required to make sure that the process is good, is effective. So you have in your process defined standards for output and for input. Now, that is what I want you to keep in mind when I am now going to be talking about what we do with a standard. Right? So it is not just the one output, it is not just the one input. The standard we will be talking about is a complex of a number of inputs and outputs that fit together into this process. So we have our standard, the way we need to work, but also the result that we'll get for our company. And this is something that we now want to improve, let's say. For this we have a visioning idea, right? So that is, do we want to improve it or just keep it? But let's begin today's video with the improvement cycle, because we're going to go into the infinite loop, the loops of control and improvement. And what we're getting is, if we say, well, it's just not good enough, let's send in a couple of engineers and make it a better process. They will go through an improvement cycle, Kaizen, maybe TPM type of improvements, a specific improvement route, all kinds of improvement activities. It can even be, and these are not per se the same, but I'll put them around so that you also get that idea. The MAIC is also typically one of those improvement methods that has a couple of steps in it, and you just go around the circle. You take something that was a standard you were not happy with, and you define what you want to do, you measure what the current steps are, and you analyze, you improve, you control and check that you have everything in place, and then you end up with a new standard. That new standard, it is still the same process. Basically, we're still making car tires and we're still making the same, but we have updated a couple of our inputs, maybe a setting, maybe a type of rubber. We've done those changes in the input standards, and we get a better performance standard. Maybe we have fewer defects, which is a nice thing. So the same process got slightly different standards that lead to a higher performance. That also becomes a standard. Now, from there, we say, well done, team. You can go on and also fix our rubber belt line. We need more uptime there. And they go off and do something else. Then we do still want to keep that performance. For that, we also will need to keep the inputs, but hey, the team knew that, but the people on the shop floor maybe not. Things drop down. Now, this is exactly why, with such a standard, we also have our control loop. So the control loop, that is the one I also really like talking about. It's the problem-solving course that I have is also part of that control loop. Go check it out if you haven't done so already. But this is how to keep standards. So this is where we get that loop of, we take this standard and all of the standards that are in our process standard, and we check if it is all in place. So first off, we check some of the basic requirements, which is, are the people at the line skilled enough? Do they know how to do it? Do we have the correct and correctly trained people on that line? Also supplying the goods, doing the quality checks, everything that is needed to keep these standards stable. Is it in our know-how base? Is it with the people on the floor? If it's not correct, then we check the process standards. We generally use process confirmation, maybe Gemba rounds for this, but that means that there is a check on the process itself. Short interval control rounds are a bit of a mix between the process and the next one, the performance check. But that means when we are doing a process control, process confirmation, a Gemba round, we are not so much looking at the results. We are not checking if the OEE is high enough or how many defects were produced. We are checking, are we setting up the line correctly? Is the line in good working order, so no technical defects? Do we see our operators, our other colleagues, perform their tasks in the way that we know is our standard, that is the optimal way that we have decided? So basically, do we see those input standards really being there? Can we check it? And the next one, the performance control, is checking the output standards. Now all of these, so really the basic requirements to even get the inputs, then checking that the inputs are indeed correct and checking that the outputs are indeed correct, they may indicate a deviation from our standard process. Any of those can be a deviation, and we want to act on that. Now, since this is already a standard, we have proven that we can work in this way. I mean, as long as we haven't proven that, your improvement team or your management team or whoever made the standard is not finished yet, right? So, but we'll come a bit more to that as well. It means that you have proven that you can achieve and make this training, you can achieve the competency levels. You've proven that a line speed of 60 is indeed a good way to run this machine, that the machine can reliably run at 60. So when you go to the line and you see 52, you know you can just say, guys, what's up? Let's go to 60. What's the problem? If then they start complaining about breakdowns or something else, you know that you have a deviation from your standard. And the same also goes for what we are very used to doing, which is the performance control. The key performance indicators, KPIs, are the bread and butter of our daily meetings and our shift meetings. When we see that the OE of the line is seriously worse than what it was in previous days, there is a problem. When we see that breakdowns are there, when we see specific defects, things are going wrong. Now, since we know that we can achieve those standards, there is a super high chance that if one of these things is lacking, is showing a deviation, that there is one, maybe two, but one clear cause to that, with usually only also one root cause. And that is why we go into a root cause type of problem solving. Now you can say, for instance, with the fire triangle, right? That's an oft-used example that you need and fuel and oxygen and heat or agitation. If you have all three, then you get a fire. And if any of them is lacking, you will not get a fire. So a fire has three root causes. Well, maybe yes, maybe no. One thing is definitely clear. You were able to produce without a fire, so at least one of them was missing, and hopefully you built sort of a double security in there. Two of them were missing. But it's not that suddenly you have a line that is flammable and it wasn't before. No, there are causes to what happened, and very few, one or two. Now, in this problem solving, you will create slightly new standards, so it is similar. It is very similar to this improving, and there lies the danger. But you are basically only getting back to the same results standards, performance standards, and the updating of the input standards in a good root cause problem solving is often very limited. What you are changing is how you make sure that the inputs to the process stay the same. So do we need to change the training? Do we need to replace some parts sooner? Can we check if something is going out of whack and just react on it before it becomes a problem? All kinds of things like that. Now I know those problem solving teams from time to time, they will also come with just a brilliant improvement, simply because you've got a couple of smart people looking at your process again in much detail. Of course, improvements can come out of that. But the goal is to get back to the performance standard, not per se increase it. And the primary idea is to get back to all the input standards and only improve the assurance that we stay on input standards. Sometimes things also go so well, you get better stuff. Now, that is how you keep a standard. But for that, and I've talked about this before, so sorry for wasting, again, 15 minutes of your life by repeating this, but what I see so often, and this is what I alluded to in the beginning of the video, is that when people are doing such an improvement team, especially in the analysis and implementation phases, or in the analysis and root cause and what are we going to change phases, we are working with a lot of usually technical standards or ways of purchasing or material quality standards or stuff like that. And even going a step further to trainings, that's usually okay. But a focus on, so how should my machine work? How do these gears work? How is the tact of this line when the plunger goes down? I said all kinds of technical stuff. Engineers love it. They are good at that. They will make sure that they get the stroke of your plunger exactly right and that the whole machine flows nice and evenly, that your glue guns are targeted correctly, that the settings are good, that, all those things, they can make the line sing. But then, how do we keep that? How do we maintain the tension on our conveyor belts, the directional positioning of our sensors, our glue pistols, the stroke, but also the lubrication of a plunger, all kinds of things like that. The quality of our base materials, all those standards. First off, we need to be able to define them. And that is already a point that's quite often lacking in this analysis, implementation, and control phase. Formally, it is part of the control phase, but I see it being skipped over too frequently. Because what I hear is especially from an engineer, we checked it and we adjusted things and now it's running nicely. And we keep paying attention, we ask the operators how it's going, and at some point they sometimes say, it's not going well today. And I check it again and I see, there are these small changes, and I make the line work optimally again, which is nice. But then the next step to making it a standard that we can control is that we ask that engineer, so what specifically did you do, right? So what can I, as a non-engineer, check in this process? Is there some way that I can help the whole process out by checking these standards? It's only if I know the standard. The next thing is who should be checking that and how often. Right? And this is all the typical control stuff that you find in the make, that you also find in your Kaizen routes and improvement routes, sustaining the changes, controlling the effect, controlling the change, teaching the standard. That is what is meant. You need to have very clear understanding of what are all of those input standards, ways of working, and tell me what you changed, basically. But then we get from having almost no performance as soon as the team ends to having at least a half year or so of very nice performance. And then the next step comes in, because when we are doing a continuous improvement program, we are looking at much further horizons. We are looking at, we're going to do a program where in 3 to 5 years we're going to go through the whole factory, get the performance level up. Within such a program, unfortunately, after year 2 or 3, our first teams are already dropping, well, not the teams, but the lines where they did the improvements, they're already dropping the ball again on some areas. So that is so frustrating. And when we sort of put the program into quiet water, reduce the effort on the whole program as a separate to the operation program, you see it go down even further. And that is because there are other standards here as well. In fact, this whole control cycle is also a standard. It is also a standard that we need to check. Now, the advice I gave to a couple of colleagues from a client where I now work is that if you are in an improvement team, everything you do, you need to ask yourself, who should have been doing this? It's very good that right now, you as the engineer, the team lead, whatever your role is on an improvement team are doing that. That is, in fact, exactly what you should be doing. Take the role of the engineer, take the role of the operator, the mechanic, the manager, the team lead, take up all of such responsibilities. But each time that you do it, really ask yourself, what did I just do? If it is, I just realigned an optical sensor, then the answer is probably it shouldn't have moved in the first place. But also, I saw that it was not correct. The operator of that line should be able to see if the sensor is aligned correctly. What can we do to make sure that that happens? Right, we need to train the operator. We need to give them probably a standard frequency of checking those sensors, put it into his task cards, maybe also get some management support. So let's say that a team leader also should check if the operator does these checks and how that is going from time to time. Either congratulate them on good checks or correct when it's not really going well. We're already here, right? All those things you need to think about when you are doing an improvement team. So you just realign the sensor, but that sort of spider web of thoughts should immediately be going off. Now, this is very difficult for people not trained in continuous improvement. In fact, it's very difficult for people that are trained in continuous improvement. When you, and I assume that most of my viewers, so probably you as well, are really in the continuous improvement field. So when you are guiding others in continuous improvement, you've got some engineers, some brilliant operators, mechanics and engineers on a team, and you sort of guide that team. These are the type of questions that you need to ask them. What did you do specifically, and how should it have been? What if you are not around? Because as long as you're in an improvement team, you are not part of the normal daily operation. So what if you are not there? What should have been done? And this first step is already quite difficult. So really, that if that works within your organization, kudos, you're already doing it very well. You're at a level that many do not easily achieve. But the next step also comes, because when we get past this, what I generally then hear is that, but the operator put a tag, something was wrong with the line, maybe that sensor went out of whack again, put a tag in there and ask for a small modification, make sure that it's just a fixed sensor or whatever, right? Put it into the system, send it to the maintenance department who should be changing that line a little bit. Simple modification request. But the operator didn't get any feedback, and maybe they're working on it, maybe not. It's very unclear. They're now not motivated to actually do something with it. Very good that you spotted it. So what did this engineer on the team then do? Well, I went over to the maintenance department. She comes from that department, so she knows those people pretty well. Went over, checked it. They had ordered a couple of parts that they need, long supply time, so it'll be delivered maybe in 2 weeks. Communicated that back. What did your team member just do? Hear what the operator was complaining about. Go to that part of the organization that probably now has the ball. Check what they are doing. Find out. Go back to the operator, communicate. Operator happy, not super happy because they still need to wait for 2 weeks, but at least happy that they know, okay, those 2 weeks I will manually correct it from time to time. That also means that for all of this to work in our organization, somebody should be doing that communication, from operator to maintenance department to maintenance preparation and ordering the parts and sort of planning it out into when can we do this, back communication, update to the operator or whoever put in that work order, and get that ball playing and make sure that everyone stays involved. That is not a widget or a machine setting. So our engineers in the improvement team, the people you originally selected to tackle this probably technical problem, they are not well versed in that. And as continuous improvement specialists, professionals, we need to know, we need to recognize this, that the people we pick for our improvement teams, usually we pick them on the topic of which process are you going to improve. They are maybe quality people if it's about specifications and maybe machine settings, but also product, cooking settings, stuff like that. We pick specialists that fit with the direction of the improvement that we assume. They are not trained in all kinds of management stuff, but that also needs to improve. So guide them more, but definitely also really think about those processes. Anytime anyone on an improvement team does something that is helpful, the next step is to think, what did I just do? And how should we be doing this when I'm not available for this line? When it's just who in the normal organization should be doing this? And that will move into all kinds of management and communication. And in this example, there was something lacking in the communication of which work orders are there or not, and we'll probably place an overview of open work orders with comments of this is, parts are being ordered, it will be handled roughly by that date, that type of updates also, by the way, that company was already doing that very well. This is just it's a bad, low quality requests. We basically don't understand what you meant, operator who put it in. So we give that back. That part was in that plant already on a nice level, but also missing in many plants. So all of that communication, part of the maintenance team lead, together with the production team lead, they need to pick it up. Now, to make sure, because they are busy people, that they also do that, you need preferably, a manager from time to time also giving compliments on that after checking, maybe giving corrections on it after that same check. So you put your performance control on the standard that maintains the standard as well. And that is why I said, when you are doing an improvement, but basically all of your standards that you have, do not think of this one standard. So the glue melting temperature by itself is not the standard. To make sure that your boxing line is operating at good efficiency, output, 100 boxes a minute, something like that, one of the inputs is a correct glue melting temperature, which also has a maintenance plan on it. So you've got your preventive maintenance orders, which has a check if they are done from time to time, which has a process confirmation on. So there's a whole web of interacting standards that make sure we get our performance. Part of it is purely linked to this boxing machine. Part of it is just an operational standard, like how we do our skill management, how we do our process confirmation, how we do our performance checks and management. In fact, how we do problem solving and improvement. These are all organizational standards. Maybe not for all the companies, not all the factories in your company, often would be better, but still within your sphere, there is a certain way you do things. Also, those are standards that need to be controlled. They are also standards, by the way, that quite often need to be improved. So think about that as well. If you, and then we really go away from the original team that did this, but if you as a continuous improvement professional in that side of the business think about improvement, a big part of that is also to have an improvement team on your performance control system, your PCS. Or have an improvement team implement a better way of skill management. These will not directly influence performance because we're not really in directly a process that has outputs, not performance outputs for production. We are in the checking and the sustaining of good inputs. So you know that they enable our processes to work. That's also why often we call them enablers, but they are a standard as well. All your business processes, they are also standards, standard processes. That is something you want to improve and control. And that is how you, in the end, sustain your improvements. But when I just condense it again, anytime you have someone in an improvement team, every positive action they take, they should be thinking, what did I just do? And who should have done it if I were not freed up to do this improvement? So who in the normal daily operation should be doing this, who should be checking it? The team members that you select are generally not trained in this type of thinking. So it comes to you as a continuous improvement professional to coach specifically on this. This is a key role that you have when you have got your review meetings, your guiding meetings, your coaching meetings. And by fixing all of those parameters, you will almost certainly come to the next level, which is the control on those parameters and how you fix that. And the communication that makes everything. Communication is like the lubrication, the social lubrication of all of your processes, right? Good communication is very hard to grasp what it is. We all know when it's lacking, but that is also something you can help, you can standardize, but who needs to be checking it? What is the role of management here? every time that you take an action as an improvement team member, think about who could have done this, who should be doing this, who should have pulled the alarm when that person was not doing it. So what is the control mechanism? If you do that, and you make standards out of that, then your chance of sustaining the improved results that you got will become very high. Better yet, if you really start doing that, you will see that you will be getting better results in areas where you didn't even have an improvement team. And that is because if you can improve that control loop, if you can improve that way that you are working with modification orders and breakdown stuff and how management reacts and how we are working in the organization, the business processes, it'll have an effect on a whole load of small processes everywhere. So that is the good thing. If you feel that the results of your improvement teams are slipping, think about everything in this video, but work on who should be doing what, and it will cost you time, figure that in, but it will give you a lot of results as well. And that in the end is what it is about. Now, I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button. Also, check out that problem solving course that I have. I'll be making it a bit cheaper when I get to it. So be ready for that too. Just download the template, get on the mailing list. I'll give you a mail on that when I get to it. It's been quite busy lately. But anyway, for now, like the video, check the stuff out, and I wish you the best of luck getting your results nicely sustained. And as always, don't forget to enjoy the improvement journey.